Someone asked me if I had plans to do a character creation video, and I have a lot of ideas on different topics for character creation, a lot of which deserve their own video. But recently I saw that Matt Colville had been doing a series of videos where he makes an adventure live on stream. I think it's up to like 8 or 10 hours now, this series of live streams. And he makes an adventure for his tabletop game Draw Steel that he's making with his company. And so I thought, why don't I just make a character semi-live on video, right? I say semi-live because this obviously is a recording, but I have no plans for this character yet. This is literally me sitting down and designing a character from scratch. I do have some notes, things that I want to cover, things that I think are important that I don't want to forget to tell you, viewer. But this video is mostly going to be what you do after you have that character sheet finished. So you rolled your dice, you picked your skills, you picked your features, you picked your class, right? But how do you turn that character sheet into a actionable character that is a role that you can play, right? Because you're playing a role-playing game. So how do you make that character a role to play? The first thing I'm going to need is a class. Originally, I thought I would do a barbarian, but I already kind of made a character in my head for the barbarian, so I don't want to just regurgitate that here. Same thing accidentally happened for wizard after I realized I already made a barbarian character, so we're going to choose something else. I have played most of the classes, but I think the one that I haven't played in the longest is ironically also my favorite class, which is the Ranger. The first class I ever played was the Ranger. It was basically an Aragorn character, which I think happens to a lot of us. We just kind of play what we're used to, and I had been playing fantasy games where I had been that Ranger sort of class. You know, I had my sword, I had my bow, and I just enjoyed it more than like magic or straight martial classes. It's a happy middle ground, and so I think we're going to go with Ranger. So we're going to write that down. So we have our class. Now I want to take a look at the subclasses. And even if I am making a level 1 character, the reason I want to look at the subclasses is because if I'm going to be taking on a character, a role, right? When I level up, I want those features that I get to make sense for the character that I created, right? I want the subclass, or the archetype it's also called, to kind of jive with whatever my intentions are in this world. So I'm going to look at these two subclasses so that I can help get inspiration for my background. The Ranger archetype has 2 subclasses. The Ranger has 2 archetypes, the Hunter and the Beastmaster, and I'm kind of thinking I want to go with Hunter because I really like the idea, at least for myself and even often for my players, of player characters, having a existing conflict in the world before the game starts, having existing enemies in the world. And I think that Hunter archetype will make sense if I want to choose a enemy that has like wronged me in some way. So we have our class, we've let our subclass kind of inspire what we want to do with our character. I'm going to leave background for the end. I often leave background for the end because I let the design of the character kind of inspire what I want that background to be. But you can also just use background as inspiration if you want. I'll probably do the same for the race, or I think in 2024 edition, they might be calling it species, the race and or species, whatever those people are called. I'll probably leave that for like part way through the character design. And the first thing I want to think about when I'm designing the character is why I am adventuring at all. Because the majority of people in a standard D&D fantasy world probably are farmers, guards, right? People with jobs and things. They're just normal people.
What do you mean, normal men?
We're just innocent men.
And the idea of going down into dungeons to going into haunted forests and things sounds insane. Right? So why am I doing that? Why am I adventuring at all? And I think for a ranger, it would easily make sense if I was like the protector on the outskirts of society, protecting people from all those evil things I just talked about that people don't want to face. That would totally make sense, but it also feels a little cliche. And I often, when I'm designing characters that I want to have fun playing, right, I want to move away from those cliches. So I'm going to try to think of a way or some type of adventure I might need to go on that would not be that, but that would still be conducive to what a ranger is. And so I think that for me, I kind of want, maybe I will be adventuring because I am like looking for a magic item. But then of course the next question is, well, why am I looking for a magic item? Well, it could be some sort of hubris, like I want to be more powerful, but that sounds kind of boring to me. I'm kind of more interested in something more altruistic. I think that goes well with the hero-ship of Dungeons and Dragons, right? Probably will fit better in my Dungeon Master's campaign. And this actually is a great moment to talk about if you have a Dungeon Master who has a really fleshed out world and is really excited about writing and world building and isn't just using like a module or isn't just using the standard D&D fantasy world. Talk to them about their world. They will have cool things for you to participate in, things they are already excited about, things that are already in the campaign, right? Like in my world, I of course have an order of holy knights and have travelers that go through the world that are like kind of wayfarers in a sense, and they all have their own like code of ethics and beliefs in different gods and things, right? And so I would want to discuss that with my players and let that inspire them. And if I was a player in that, I would ask my dungeon master the same way that my players ask me about that world to kind of get inspiration. I think this is a great point when you're looking at like, well, why am I adventuring? It's like, well, what's going on in the world? Talk to your dungeon master, see what's going on in the world. But you can also just assume it's a standard fantasy world and probably get pretty far. So why am I adventuring? I'm on the outskirts of society. I'm a ranger. I'm looking for a magic item. Maybe I'm trying to upend a curse. Maybe I'm trying to upend a curse that has befallen my city. Okay, so now we have a bit of an altruistic goal to go after, something bigger than myself that I can strive for, right? Because when you're just striving for selfish reasons, it's I don't know, it's not as fun for me. I want something bigger than myself to go after. I want to be that hero. But that does make me wonder, well, why has a curse befallen my city? And that really leads us into the next question of like, well, who are my enemies? And figuring out an answer to this question is going to help me in two ways. The first way is it's going to be conducive to my hunter subclass that I'm going to get in a couple levels, right? I'm going to have an enemy that I am hunting. And then the second thing is it's going to give my dungeon master someone to use to make me mad. Someone that the dungeon master can easily just throw into quests and I can immediately be on board with that quest and I can be striving after something bigger than the quest that involves my personal character arc or subplot, right? I think having your own personal goals and subplot is something that is a lot of fun in Dungeons and Dragons and something that I want to develop when I'm creating my character. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do right now. I know that a curse has befallen my city and that I'm looking for a magic item to stop that. And I'm wondering who my enemies are. So the enemies are probably going to be the people that put that curse on my city. So maybe it could be an evil wizard, but an evil wizard isn't really a group of people. So maybe it will be a cult, and maybe that cult will be made of sorcerers. If that's how you spell sorcerers, it is. Thank you, Google spell check autocorrect. Right, because sorcerers would be the ones going around cursing towns. So maybe there's a small group of sorcerers. My town didn't pay. They didn't pay homage to the sorcerers. The sorcerers were like, well, you need to give us something. And the town said no. And so they cursed the town. And so now I'm looking for a magic item for that. So now I have a quest that I'm going on. Now I have enemies that my dungeon master can throw into pretty much any plot and I will join it, right? It's very easy to hook this character because I have something I already want. So now I'm going to wonder what my goal is. Goal is kind of already done for me. I'm looking for that magic item. And maybe it is the sister item of the magic item the sorcerers use to curse my town. So far, this is great for a character. This is like, this will get you in the game. This will give the Dungeon Master things to work with. But there's other things that I like to do when I'm making a character that are fun for me. And one of those things is to ask, how does my character change? This is a question that is really specific to how I like to play characters, because I like characters that grow and develop as the game changes, right? I want that level 1 character to be different as a character than the character is at level 20, right? I want them to have seen parts of the world, to have their ideas changed. And so when I'm making a character, I like to think about parts of that character that would be conducive to change. And so with this ranger, I'm thinking the only magic he has really seen is magic that has cursed his town. So maybe this ranger really doesn't like magic. And he really feels like he is maybe selling his soul in a way, because rangers partially use magic. And so he feels like he has to use magic, but he feels so guilty about it. So now as this character develops, he's going to see that magic isn't necessarily evil. He's going to see that there are good ways to use magic and bad ways to use magic. And so this will give him a little bit of like character growth. And there's probably also going to be some character growth from like him as a level 1 person that lived in a tiny village to someone that has seen the wider world. So I'll add that as well. So he's going to be experiencing like a culture shock of the wider world. And something that I actually like to put in characters, I probably put it in too many characters, but I'm going to put it in this one because we're making a character that's fun for me, right? Is a character that doesn't really believe in a lot of magical monsters. So when the characters are going out on a quest to fight a werewolf, this ranger is going to be saying like, werewolves are a myth. So now we have that silly quirk of the character. Adding silly quirks is just fun sometimes, right? We're making characters that are fun to play, so add fun things that you are going to have fun doing. And then maybe that will also help how my character changes, is he sees that these magic monsters aren't a result of some dark magic. They are just part of the ecosystem of the world. And then the last thing I like to add is something that is tangible or visible that binds that character to their past. That could be a tradition they follow. That could be an item that they keep with them, the way they look, right? A scar or something. And it would be really easy here to do like a Princess Mononoke type thing where I've got like a bunch of worms on my arm and I'm like, I barely escaped the curse. And that would be fun. But I also kind of like to break away from things that have already been done before. I'm also kind of thinking, having developed this, like I'm being reminded of the raising of the Shire in The Lord of the Rings. So I'm kind of thinking maybe I will be I almost said hobbit, a halfling. There are halflings in D&D. And I see there's 2 types of halflings. There's a Lightfoot halfling and a stout halfling. The Lightfoot is more stealthy, but I'm kind of thinking about background now. And off the top of my head, I'm kind of thinking folk here. So maybe I'm stout. Maybe when those sorcerers came to my village, I resisted them somehow. I barely survived. And it was because I was a stout halfling. And this helps us with the question that we were on, which was a tangible, visible way to bind us to our past. The species that I am, or the race that I am, is going to do that, right? I'm a halfling. But how else can we do that? I'm kind of thinking again about the Shire, and I'm kind of feeling like maybe it's a dish I cook. That's something that I think will be fun for me because I'll be a ranger and I'll be like, oh, I go and get like some roots and things from the woods and I make this dish from my homeland, right? And then I can talk to my fellow players about my background and what has happened to me in the quest I'm on. So I think that will be fun. And I think that we're pretty much done here. Although I do need a name, and I am very much a fan of just having one-word names. And I think I'm going to play that into the background a little bit and have me like forsake my family name until I feel like honorable enough to retake it. Right? Like I feel like I have let down my town. They are all stuck in this magical curse where they can't leave or something, or maybe they're all like frozen, they're all pillars of ash or something. And so I will not say my last name until I have undone that curse. So maybe I just have a first name for a halfling. It's probably going to be something nature related. Maybe maybe my name is Nutmeg. You can call me Meg for short. But never call me Nut. So maybe my name is Nutmeg. With a secret last name. But this character is pretty much done. We have things that the Dungeon Master can use, right? The Dungeon Master can look up that magic item. The Dungeon Master can use the Cult of Sorcerers as enemies. And I know you might be thinking like, well, isn't the Dungeon Master's job to develop these quests? Like, aren't we kind of doing the Dungeon Master's job? And I would say, no, we aren't doing the Dungeon Master's job. We are making a character who exists in the world and has conflicts in the world that are already exciting to go after, right? These are when Dungeon Masters talk about hooking characters, I have my mouth wide open. I'm like, hook me, Dungeon Master. Help me find my magic item. Help me find the sorcerer, right? Help me save my town. And so I'll explain this all to the Dungeon Master. I'll probably write it up in a way more conducive to the Dungeon Master or more helpful to the Dungeon Master, right? And now I have a way that my character can change throughout the story so that I won't feel tired of this character because they're the same person making the same jokes, right? My character is going to change after a while, and I have ways for the character to bring up their past and background. And hopefully this has helped you with ideas of how to create a character that has motivations, that is striving to do things. I think it's much more fun to be a character with motivations and goals who are striving to do things and have a place in the world, have things they're already excited about. If there's things you wanted to do in Dungeons and Dragons, like fight a dragon, fight a beholder, make that your goal, make that your motivation. It's totally a valid motivation. And if you're a dungeon master who wants to take this process a little bit further, help your players develop characters that are really grounded in your world, I did a whole video on that. It's called right now, I think, Understanding Players Equal Better Narratives, but I've kind of been trying to think of a better title. I'm hopefully linking it right here. I'm hopefully also linking it down in the description somewhere. It was my first video, so it's a little cheesy, but it has a lot of good information in it that I still stand by. So go ahead and check it out. Thank you so much for watching this video. My name is Wes. My dog's name is Prismo. This is Tabletop Writer, where I talk about traditional and non-traditional methods of writing through the lens of tabletop gaming, and mostly Dungeons and Dragons, because that's mostly what I play, but I also play a lot of other tabletop games, and I think a lot of this is really helpful for any tabletop game. I think you could go through this process we talked about in any tabletop game and still have a great fun time. So thank you again for watching. I will hopefully see you next time. Cret Le Sat. Cret Le Sat.